Okay, let's continue. Because I ended the last video on doing Dear Man, Give Dear Man and on negotiate. I didn't have much. I know I got cut off at the end of talking about negotiate. It just means that you're in a frame of mind where you might find that when it's a difficult interaction and you're asking for something difficult or saying no to something difficult to say no to, you might be willing to negotiate, and you want to know that that's in the background. You don't start out right there, but you might be willing to negotiate. It can be a skillful thing to do to just get the best deal you can get. All right. Now, by the way, there's another handout after that that's very valuable, helpful. I wouldn't spend a lot of time teaching it, but you can refer people to it. You can refer yourself to it, which is applying Dear Man skills to a difficult current interaction. Because, you know, if you script these Dear Mans, if it's a simple one, it'll go well. But if the other person themselves are rather skillful at going after what they want and it's in competition with you, it could be challenging. So there's just a bunch of suggestions on that page about different things to do if it's a difficult interaction, things you might consider doing. So I just recommend that. The next skill or set of skills or guidelines is the guidelines for keeping a good relationship. Right? Here it is, handout number 6, guidelines for relationship effectiveness, keeping the relationship. So when you move on to this, teaching this, there's just these 4 guidelines. But think of it this way. Don't think now I'm teaching a whole separate set of skills that would be applied independently and separately. The idea here is that if you want to try to keep a good relationship or even improve a relationship through an encounter, while you do Dear Man, you add in these 4 guidelines to make it more relationship friendly, you might say. So when you do this in teaching in class, you might have done a role play in class, somebody doing Dear Man in a certain situation. And now after teaching these, you want to do Dear Man again, but with the additional emphasis on these 4. And what are they? Ways to keep a good relationship. It's GIVE, and the first one is gentle, to be gentle. It really just means that you really are nice to the person. You're respectful, you're gentle, you don't attack, you don't get too defensive, you don't express your anger, you don't threaten things, and you're you know, no snide remarks and things like that. So you're just being like respectful and gentle to the other person, and that helps them be more likely to continue to like you, even if you're asking something difficult for them to respond to. The I is for interested, and this is where it really helps if you don't just go after what you want, but you show yourself to be interested in their situation. What's their point of view? You show the interest non-verbally, you ask about things, you leave space to hear from them. You show interest even if it doesn't mean that you're going to back off from what you're asking, but you show that you're interested in them. And the next one sort of extends that. The V is for validate. You validate the other person with certain words, certain actions. You show that you get it. You get that this is difficult for them. You get where they're coming from. You get that it's not going to be an easy decision for them. And anything you can say along the way that indicate I get it, will help you. Well, I get that this would be a hard thing for you to respond to, for instance. I don't say this, I don't make this request without knowing that this is not an easy one, and I respect you. These kind of things that show a balance of interest in the other person, also validating the other person. By the way, the next handout on the next page goes over different ways to validate. The same things therapists learn, but in user-friendly language, expanding the V in give. So this is your one chance in the manual where you purely teach what validation is. It's such an important skill. So to take a little extra time with what validation is, do a role play showing validation, asking more questions about it is worthwhile here. The E in give is easy manner. It just means that you don't act too tense, you don't act too hard about it all. It's like even if you're asking something that you really care about and it's difficult for the other person, it's like, you're just talking it over. There's this sense of ease if you can generate it. Might be hard. You might have to act opposite your actual intensity about the whole situation. And so, you'll be teaching how to use GIVE while you ask somebody for something. Then the next one is going to be, as you might guess, guidelines for self-respect effectiveness. How do you keep respect for yourself when you're asking a difficult thing or you're something you really care about? And it really is, this is a chance to kind of be reviewing your values and what matters to you, what it is that makes you respect yourself, and it's different for different people. So that can lead to an interesting discussion in the group about, what do you have to do? How do you ask something in a way that you respect yourself? And you get different answers from different people, and you should. So what are they? They're for 4 of these, FAST. So the first one is to be fair, and that means being fair to the other person. There's a sense of fairness between the two of you, and you're trying to be fair to that person and fair to yourself. So you want to frame this in a way that highlights that, yeah, I'm really looking for a fair solution to this. I don't want to take advantage of you. I absolutely could pay you back, or I absolutely will do something for you. I absolutely, I think this is something that works within our relationship, that we've done a lot of good things for each other, etc. So being fair. Second, no excessive apologies. So some people will get into apologizing when they make a request, apologizing when they say no, as if they don't deserve to take those positions of valuing themselves. And so you want to stop people from, if you want someone to come out of an encounter with a lot of self-respect, you might apologize once. Say, I know this would be hard for you. I apologize to put you on a spot like this. However, blah, blah, blah. And then, but if you excessively apologize, if you apologize again, or you apologize for your very existence, your brain hears what you're saying and it lowers its own point of view about you, or it keeps it low, and you're trying to elevate your self-respect, trying to be less depressed, have more self-esteem, and more kind of valuation of yourself. So no excessive apologies, no acting ashamed of what you're asking for. And that requires some work for some people, but it helps with self-respect. The S is sticking to your values. This is a chance in the group to talk about how different things matter more to different people. Clarifying what your values are, which is something that came up in emotion regulation training, including a list of categories of different values that you could look back to. But the idea is that you want to stay with your values, and if you are within alignment with your values, stick to your guns on that. Hold that. And even if you lose out in the end, you'll know that you sort of stuck with your values, and you could feel a little better about yourself because of that. And the final one is the T, be truthful. And so the idea here is, while you could lie, you could exaggerate, you could make false excuses, etc., as part of getting what you want, you could end up damaging your own sense of self-respect, because maybe lying is outside your, most of our moral compasses. So this is really just trying to be truthful. So trying to be fair, trying to not excessively apologize, trying to stick to your values, and trying to be truthful while you do Dear Man or Dear Man Give can help you with your self-respect while you pursue what you want to pursue. Okay? The other thing I want to cover right now has always been considered one of the most complicated handouts to teach in the entire skills manual, and so I just want to orient you to it because it's a very valuable skill. You know how when skillful people Maybe you're a skillful person. Um, Maybe you know skillful people. When skillful people ask for what they want, they have a sense of how much to ask for, how much is pushing too far, and how much is bad timing, how much is really asking for too much versus it's about right. And there's also you don't want to ask for too little if you want something, but you do need to titrate how you're asking with what the circumstances are. And some people are not very good at reading those circumstances, especially if you grow up in an invalidating environment where people don't model very good interpersonal skills. You might not have learned this, and you wonder, how do other people know what to say, or know when to say it, or know how hard to push? Well, they know because they grew up in a different environment, and they learned. They learned. And so the idea is you can teach this. But it seems a little, because this is such an intuitive skill for most people, laying out the criteria that you want to use when you're deciding how intensely to push for something. It sounds a little awkward or a little artificial, but it really breaks down kind of the different things you should consider. So the first thing you teach in this is what are the actual options, going from the most intense, which might be 10 out of 10 here, which is high intensity, where you ask for something and you insist on it and you don't take no for an answer. Or if somebody asks you something and you want to say no, you're absolutely going to say no. You're going to not do it. That'd be a high intensity. Lowest intensity would be where you don't even give an indication. You don't ask for what you want. You don't even hint for what you want. You don't even go there, right? Or if somebody asks you for something, you just go for it. You just do what they say. You just do what they ask. You don't say no. And in between, all the way from 1 to 10, there's a kind of a anchored series of numbers where you kind of get an idea. So you go into this skill by first figuring out, what level of intensity should I use? And then the next handout 8, are the factors to consider when you're making this decision about how firm or how intense you want to be, right? So what should you consider? And you go over this list of things that you should consider and weigh each one and give a kind of a yes or no answer as best you can to each of these. So these are things like, is the other person actually capable of giving you what you want? Okay, yes, they are. All right, move forward. Maybe they aren't capable, and that's going to be a real stopping point. Is it in keeping with your priorities? All right, yes, it is in keeping with my priorities. No, it's not. What's the effect going to be if I push on my sense of self-respect? Am I going to lose self-respect? Well, then wait, maybe we should back off from this, and it reduces. There's no obvious formula about how you come out with where you are on the 0 to 10 intensity scale. That each of these is just a consideration that adds up. Is this within your legal rights and your moral rights? Is this within your authority relationship with this person? Do you have an authority relationship? Are you the person's boss? Are you the person's employee or junior or something like that? What type of is this in keeping with the kind of relationship you have with somebody? Like if you've never met somebody, but you really like them, you don't go ask them to marry you, because even if you say yes to all of the other checkpoints here, it's not in keeping with your relationship. Is this in line with what you want to do about your long-term goals? It's in keeping with your long-term goals as opposed to your short-term. Is it in keeping with the reciprocity between the two of you? Is it in keeping with how much homework you've done to prepare for making this request? And is it in keeping with, is it good timing? So as you consider each of these, then you can help somebody come up with what level of intensity to pursue something with. Okay? Hope that's understandable. We'll move on with the next one.